I think when people talk about Helldivers 2 loadouts or tier lists in general, the usual star of the show are stratagems, mainly because they're hella fun when chucked around while out in the field. But boosters are really important and worth talking about too. Some of them are straightforward, but others are really damn complicated. Today we're going to take a few minutes to go through what literally every booster in the game does and where I personally rank each one. Starting with Stamina Enhancement, because it's probably the easiest one to understand. Increases all Helldivers' stamina capacity and recovery. By how much? Good question. It actually depends on what kind of armor you're wearing, light, medium, or heavy. While I was expecting heavy armor to get the most mileage out of the stamina enhancement, I was surprised to learn it's actually the opposite. While wearing light armor, your stamina fully regens around 2 seconds faster with the booster, which, yeah, doesn't sound like a lot. That's the minor effect of the booster, I would say. But when comparing how long you're able to sprint for before losing all your stamina, you can go for around 9 full seconds longer with light armor with the booster turned on, which is damn good. For medium armor, your stamina will fully regen around 1.5 seconds faster with the booster, and you'll be able to run around 7 seconds longer, give or take, as opposed to no booster at all. Heavy armor gets the smallest benefit. You'll fully regen your stamina around 1 second faster, and you'll be able to fully sprint for almost 5 full seconds longer with the booster turned on, give or take a few frames. The exact difference likely will depend on the stamina regen stat of your armor, so just take the numbers I've given you as a general baseline. I know on paper the difference of only a few seconds looks like not a big deal, but think for a minute just how often you're running in Helldivers 2 on high difficulty. Also keep in mind that the longer missions go, the harder they get, and you quickly realize that this booster is incredibly good, S tier in my opinion. Running is something you do almost every mission, and we'd have to get some really good options down the line in order for this bad boy to get power crept. On the subject of running, let's talk Muscle Enhancement. Allows Helldivers to traverse difficult terrain with ease. I couldn't get any testing clips on snow-covered planets because we freaking wiped out automatons over the weekend. G goddamn G, by the way. But there's plenty of other difficult terrains in Helldivers 2, so I went with mud. The following clips only show off running through a relatively small mud patch, but it's very easy to see that you burn through the terrain much quicker with Muscle Enhancement turned on in every type of armor. I don't know about you, but I find it incredibly annoying when I'm hindered by terrain while running away from enemies. In high-level missions, you can flat out get overwhelmed and killed very easily by bugs if you aren't moving quickly and they overtake you. I think Muscle Enhancement is going to depend a lot on the planet you're on and the mission. For example, Eradicate missions, aka the teeny tiny map missions where you don't do a whole lot of moving around, that would be a bad booster pick overall. But for big map missions, especially on snowy planets or any other area with tons of difficult terrain, this booster will really put in work. I'm going to give it a firm A tier, not always needed, but incredibly useful when it comes into play. Next up, Vitality Enhancement allows all Helldivers to resist injury. I'm going to be honest, I don't feel that every diver truly appreciates what the Vitality booster brings to the table. Reading through some old forum stuff, seems like a lot of players feel that the resist injury only translates to it takes more for your body parts to become injured. That part is true though. If you fall off a small ledge and damage your own legs on impact, you can see that without a booster, both your legs will become injured on the second fall. With the Vitality booster though, it now takes 3 falls for your legs to become injured. So yeah, technically resisting injury does mean it takes more for your limbs, chest, and head to hit the injured status in game. But the Vitality booster also lowers the amount of damage you take per attack, and even though it's really hard to show that via taking direct damage from enemies, mainly because they might not hit you in the same body part over and over, it's actually really easy to show that difference via having a friend shoot you. Not very friendly for them to do, of course, but we do wild things out here for both science and democracy. With light armor on and a fellow diver shooting me in the leg with no Vitality booster, I was killed in 2 shots, while with the Vitality booster on, I died in 3. Swapping over to heavy armor and with no booster turned on, my fellow diver was able to kill me by shooting me in the leg 4 times. With the Vitality booster turned on though, suddenly it took 5 in the leg to put me down. You get the idea. The TLDR is that Vitality not only makes your body parts stronger to break, but you also take reduced incoming damage across the board, and that is big. Being able to take 1 or even 2 extra hits at higher levels of difficulty before dying is something not to be taken lightly at all. Especially when combined with crazy armor traits like Democracy Protects, you're literally making it noticeably significantly harder for yourself to die in the middle of combat. And considering how annoying it is to die in a mission, you gotta go back and get your gear, you gotta get your super credits, the mission takes longer, how things can snowball at difficulty level 9, and to me, this is a no-brainer. Vitality Enhancement is the second booster I'm giving S tier. Always beneficial to have on, regardless of mission, planet, enemy faction, whatever. Moving on, UAV Recon Booster increases all Helldivers' effective radar range. It is worth noting that all of my testing for this booster was done under the effect of having the nuclear radar upgrade unlocked. Wish I could have numbers and data for both, but I got everything in the game unlocked at this point. My bad. Anyway, UAV Recon wasn't that hard to test. Just get up close to an enemy outpost where they aren't moving around and keep fiddling and checking your radar. It would seem that without the booster turned on, and again with the nuclear radar upgrade, you can detect enemies on the map up to 74 meters away. Anything beyond that, the red blips just slip right off the radar. With the UAV booster turned on though, that range leaps up to around 110 meters, give or take. That's a giant improvement on paper. Being able to detect enemies at around 35-ish more meters is a noticeable change and helpful if you want to try to avoid patrols or just check out an area. I wanted to see if the booster also affected armor with the scout trait, aka if you ping the radar while wearing scout armor, will that ping be able to detect enemies at further range? And it turns out, yeah, it absolutely does, which is a quality pairing for sure if you're a fan of scout armor, which I am. Not to upset the UAV folk out there, but I'm gonna give the UAV Recon booster a solid B tier, meaning I still do like it overall, but I think there are better options. At Helldive difficulty, I do try quite hard to avoid patrols and combat where I don't necessarily need to fight. But combat often becomes inevitable no matter how much information you're given on the radar. At mid difficulty missions though, UAV booster and scout armor together could result in skipping out on a ton of combat. Again, it definitely can help you, but I think other options may be more appealing. Next up, Hellpod Space Optimization. Divers come out of their pods fully stocked on ammo, grenades, and stims. Very straightforward to understand. Normally when you come out of your pod, you'll have not quite max stims, grenades, and ammo depending on your gun. For example, if you're rocking the newly buffed Breaker Incendiary, you'll come out with only 4 out of 6 mags. If you're dropping in with the Slugger shotgun, you'll come out with only 32 of 60 rounds in the mag. Damn. Odd side note though, the P19 Redeemer pistol will have full ammo even if you don't have the Hellpod booster on. Again, kinda odd considering it's one of the better sidearms in the game already. Don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining, it just seems weird why the Senator or any other sidearm wouldn't get that same treatment. Anywho, for grenades with no booster, you'll come out of your pod with 3 out of 4, and for stims, you'll only come out with 2 out of 4. If you were wondering if you're wearing armor that allows you to carry more grenades, you'll come out with 5 out of 6 with no booster. In the same vein, if you're wearing armor that allows you to carry more stims, you'll come out with 4 out of 6 with no booster. But with the Hellpod booster, you always come out of the pod fully stocked on everything, and damn, that is so unbelievably good across the board. This is without question an unarguable S tier booster, and not only that, top of the S tier. In short, someone should be bringing this booster pretty much to every mission. It would take a whole hell of a lot for the Hellpod to get overthrown, IMO. Moving on, let's get to the 2 reinforcement options, flexible reinforcement budget and increased reinforcement budget. Increased reinforcement budget bumps up the number of available reinforcements. By how much? What a good looking question. It actually depends on how many players are in your fire team. When you first drop into a mission, take a look at the number in the top left corner. The number of reinforcements depends on your fire team. For every player in your fire team, normally you will get 5 reinforcements. Meaning if you drop in alone with no booster, you'll have 5 reinforcements. But if you drop in with a full team of 4, again, no booster, you'll have a grand total of 20. With the increased reinforcement budget booster, you now get 1 additional reinforcement for every player in your fire team. Meaning if you drop in alone with the booster turned on, you'll now have 6 instead of 5, and if you drop in with a full team of 4, you'll have 24 instead of 20. Now, while having more reinforcements is by no means a bad thing, it seems to me that other options in the game are going to be better for an experienced fire team. I'd rather have a healthier, faster, more lethal fire team under the effects of the other boosters rather than just getting 4 extra lives. In short, if you can't get the mission done in 20 reinforcements, no problem, but I think you'd be better off re-evaluating your team loadout and strategy instead of leaning on this booster. For that reason, the increased budget it in my book gets put in the C tier. And on that note, let's look at flexible reinforcement budget. Reduces time until new reinforcements are granted once they've been depleted. If you originally saw that booster and were hyped it might be good, man, do I have bad news for you. Normally, when you run out of reinforcements, you'll have to wait 1 minute and 59 seconds until you get one additional reinforcement. With the booster turned on, that timer drops to 1 minute and 47 seconds, shaving only 12 seconds off the goddamn clock. I've determined that number will not change depending on either mission difficulty or the size of your fire team. 12 seconds shaved off no matter what. I'm sorry, that's just flat out bad. I cannot justify taking this booster if there are literally any other options on the table. Automatic D tier, do not take this booster. Finally, let's talk about the newest booster and by far the most complicated, Localization Confusion increases the time between enemy encounters. Thankfully, a ton of legwork on this has already been done by members of the Helldivers community. I read through multiple deep dives on Reddit written up by user Gurganation, who did an incredible breakdown of internal patrol spawning mechanics, which gives great info about the different types of enemy spawns in the game. After that, I read a follow-up post from a Steam user Antique Nova, who referenced the Reddit patrol breakdown and went on to give their findings about localization confusion. Apparently, while localization confusion has no effect on the different kinds of patrols, it substantially increases the length of the internal timer between in-game reinforcement calls, aka bot drops and bug breaches. If you hadn't noticed, unless you're in a certain type of mission like eradicate or escorting civilians where enemies are spawning in non-stop, you can't have more than one reinforcement call happening at the same time. Meaning, if your teammates are on the other side of the map dealing with a reinforcement call, you can rest assured that you will not get one wherever you are. Again, because outside of certain objectives that are basically coded to call in reinforcements, like the geological activity mission, you won't be hit with a random reinforcement call if your team is already in one. Nova's testing revealed that it seemed to give around a 35 to 40% increase between the game's internal reinforcement timer mechanic. It simply just lengthens the time before the next natural reinforcement call is able to occur. They go on to mention that the overall time between reinforcements will change depending on the level of difficulty. On Helldive difficulty missions, the extension could conservatively extend the internal timer by around 52 seconds, which is huge. Getting completely overwhelmed is probably the #1 cause of high difficulty mission failure, and even though reinforcements are bound to happen eventually, postponing the game's internal timer for that mechanic is a big deal. And while that won't help on things like eradicate missions, I can see it being largely beneficial on all other missions, and for that, I'm giving it A tier. Please share your thoughts down in the comment section on my rankings, and when we do get a new Warbond in the future, I'll try to grind out any new boosters we get and update the tier list. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new and come by the stream sometime to say hi. Thank you very much for watching. Peace!